Right, a new exhibition featuring world-renowned artist Rembrandt has opened its doors at the rather lovely North Hertfordshire Museum in Hitchin. Rembrandt in Print presents 50 of the finest works from the Ashmolean Museum's world-class collection. They've got some 200 etchings, and I believe they're called dry points. This selection ranges from 1630 till the 1650s. Ros Allwood is a cultural services manager there. Ros, for anyone who doesn't know, because it's relatively recent, North Hertfordshire Museum. It's fab, isn't it?
It is absolutely amazing. Have you been? It's just people come in and
come a tiny bit closer. There we go.
They can't believe they're in Hitchin.
Yeah.
They go, my goodness, it's like a London museum.
It's a world-class site, isn't it?
Oh, well, we think so. We really do. It's light, it's bright, it's airy.
Glassy,
modern, welcoming, full of stuff, full of really interesting things.
Where did it come from? What's the story behind it? Because it was a while in the making, wasn't it?
It was a while in the making, indeed. We used to have a local authority council museum in Hitchin and another one in Letchworth. And although they were both very nice, the main problem was that you couldn't get upstairs. We didn't have a lift. So if you couldn't do the stairs, at Letchworth Museum in particular, you couldn't see any of our wonderful exhibitions because that was all upstairs. Hitchin Museum didn't even have a public loo. No. Not one. Amazing.
And it's
no cafe, just so different.
It's worth pointing out that Hitchin itself is a wonderfully cultured cultural town in a wonderfully cultured cultural area. It needed a strong site, didn't it?
I think so. And we're very lucky because the new museum, which, as you say, has a fantastic glass front, is joined on to the Edwardian Town Hall that hadn't been used as a town hall for many years and is an events venue. So the museum and the events venue join on to each other and we share the cafe. So it actually, it's even better for Hitchin than just having the new museum. It's got this kind of, upgraded events venue as well, and we're together on one site. So it's, yes, it's fantastic.
Of course, it's one thing to open a space and tell everyone about it. It's another thing to attract strong international world-class collections and attractions. How did you win this part of the tour?
How did we do that? Well, when the new museum opened, we had £1 million from what's now the National Lottery Heritage Fund, was then the Heritage Lottery Fund, and one of the stipulations was that they wanted us to, as they put it, up our game in exhibition planning and so on, which we were very happy to do. So the exhibition gallery was actually built right at the beginning to enable us to borrow really top quality and valuable artworks from national museums. Well,
when they set up your game, maybe the more positive way of putting that is to aim higher, to dream bigger.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they were asking us to do, and it is what we have done. And I have to say, the visitor numbers show that they were absolutely right, and there's such a demand to see things. So how did we get the Rembrandt?
Spending a lot of money.
No, it wasn't so much that. It was that we'd been building up a relationship with the Ashmolean Museum actually over the last few years. We borrowed an exhibition about the printmaker F.L. Griggs, who was born in Hitchin, and it was an exhibition they had touring around some years ago. We borrowed that, and then we got to know them. They got to know us. They got to know our space. They appreciated that we knew what we were doing as far as handling delicate artworks goes. So when I heard, probably about 3 years ago now, that they were thinking of doing a Rembrandt tour, I just instantly got in and said, is there any chance? I know it sounds a bit crazy, but, how about having Rembrandts in Hitchin? And they, to my amazement, said, yeah, let's go for it.
Because, of course, the point here that is easy to underestimate is quite how logistically and financially and insurancely challenging it is to move works of art that are, in this case, 350 years old and basically have no value insofar as they are priceless.
Yes. Well, and we had to prove to the Ashmolean that we could keep the environment stable, that we could keep the room the works are hung in to this kind of very clear temperature and the relative humidity, the amount of water that's in the atmosphere. We have to measure that every day and make sure that that's not too high and not too low. So there's a lot more than you might think.
Do they arrive in a big truck?
They did arrive in a big truck, yes.
Just like a normal truck gone up the road?
Not quite like a normal truck. They're in what's called air ride vehicles, so that the I mean, everything is beautifully packed, but then if the truck goes over a bump, they don't really notice the bump. So
I want one of those.
Yeah, I'd like one of those. So it's all very lovely, really.
So that they arrive, and do you then have men and women in white gloves unpacking them like they're the crown jewels?
Well, sadly, we don't have fleets of men in white gloves. It is us who are doing this in our white gloves, and a member of the Ashmolean staff also comes along to check as everything's unpacked. Each particular work, you have to spend a long time going over it with a magnifying glass, making sure that the condition that it arrives in, you have to make notes of the tiniest pinpricks you would never see.
Because they're going to say it was you otherwise.
And you just have to, they make sure that you have them on an acetate sheet that's over the print, where everything's, all the existing damage, if you like, is marked. And then you have to check that nothing has changed.
But then also hanging them. And I struggle to hang posters at home. If you're hanging, these fantastic, priceless works of art on a little hook on the wall, your hearts must be palpitating.
Well, but I'm not going to give you away security details over the radio, but I can assure you they are not hung on hooks on the wall.
I'm sure they're attached to the wall. But the point being that the moment at which you raise them up is quite stressful.
Yeah, and we have a very good technician on our team, and it is something we're used to doing. So
I know you use that double-sided stuff that doesn't take the paint with it, don't you?
That's the one.
Because that can take up to 120 kilos.
That's how we hang our labels.
Do you know what it probably is, actually? For anyone who doesn't know Rembrandt and who's thinking, oh, come on, 350 years ago, what's the point?
A bit more than 250 years
350.
ago, actually. Yeah.
1650, yeah.
I mean, he is thought to be one of the greatest etchers that ever lived and one of the greatest artists that there ever was. So our exhibition is not of his oil paintings, but it's the prints, the etchings and the what are called tri-points. And Rembrandt experimented in printmaking massively, and he made prints in a way that, or used etchings in a way that people hadn't before. Before him, the main kind of prints were what's called engravings, and they were made because they didn't have photographs in the 1600s. If you wanted a copy of a painting, you'd have to have an engraving on it, so like a black and white print, and they were quite rigid copies of the old paintings. And what Rembrandt did that was different was he used a slightly different method of printmaking called etching, and he managed to make them look like pen and ink drawings. They're just, although he was with etchings, you have a metal needle, and you have a metal plate instead of a piece of paper. We always have paper. You'd have a metal plate. You'd cover it in wax, okay, and then you draw your picture with a metal needle into the wax.
Incredible,
right? And then you put that waxed metal plate into a bath of acid, and the acid eats away your drawing lines, leaves it where it's waxy. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yep. Then you get rid of all the wax and you put ink onto your metal plate, and where it's been eaten away, it forms like little channels, and so the ink goes into the channels, and you put some absorbent paper on top, put it through a press, and your picture comes out, but it's all back to front. Everything is reversed.
And then you go the other way.
So where Rembrandt has signed his name on our prints, actually, in reality, he had to write his name back to front.
He was part of this so-called Dutch Golden Age, heavily influenced by the great Italian artists, although he never went abroad,
He didn't go abroad, no,
always,
but people, during his lifetime, people in Italy and people in England actually collected his prints, and he was more famous during his lifetime as a printmaker than he was as a painter. So that's kind of changed a bit now.
This is all happening on our doorstep at the North Hertfordshire Museum in Hitchin. When does this run until?
It runs until the 19th of April, and we're closed on Monday. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 10:30 in the morning till 4:30. And on Sunday, we're open from 11 to 3. And one thing I do have to say, the exhibition is free, which is just amazing.
Plus, you can go buy yourself a nice coffee in the cafe next door.
Thank you very much. You can buy coffee in the cafe and much more.
You're right to say that, by the way, that it's easy to underestimate, as Ros says there. We've got this wonderful free exhibition of these incredible etchings and dry points from the Ashmolean collection, totally for free in the heart of our patch in beautiful Hitchin. Yes, Ros?
And one thing I must say before we finish...
Don't do that when I'm trying to concentrate.
I'm so sorry. 2020 is Hertfordshire's Year of Culture. And so we're opening in Hitchin. Our first thing for the Hertfordshire Year of Culture is this fantastic exhibition. But there will be things going on throughout the county all year long.
Very true. NorthArtsMuseum.org if you want to find out more. Nice to have had you in the studio, Ros. Go and see that. It's a beautiful space. It really is a beautiful space in one of our great towns. Get some grub while you're out there. Some very nice bakeries and cafes and gastro pubs in the town as well.